we're balancing there are two different emphases. Emphases? What is the English? There's one emphasis in the Theravadan lineage, which is a little more to concentration practice. And in that concentration practice, the emphasis is more on sitting in the hall for longer periods of time, sustaining predominantly a single focus to really build the stability of mind. That's one particular lineage. And then there's another one, at least until the first stage of enlightenment, but some teachers say more. There's another one which is just to know which is to know the experience, whatever the experience is. Because the emphasis isn't on the object, because concentration puts a lot of emphasis on the object. The emphasis is on being mindful, because that's what really counts. Objects come and go, but the emphasis is on mindfulness. And so in that lineage, it doesn't matter whether you're in the hall, apart from the times I ask you to be in the hall. What matters is that you are mindful in a continuous way of whatever the experience is, with the emphasis on knowing that you're mindful, because that's what counts. So you could be mindful of the door handles, of cold and wet, of sound, of tea, of standing in line, of putting the pot on the stove, of being impatient, of being happy. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're mindful. And it's the continuity of mindfulness without any preference to the object that is really important. Different people have different predispositions, and that can change. It could be that early on in your practice you were called into more concentration practice, samadhi, and then switched over to vipassana, or it could be that you are now or were called to just the practice of knowing in each moment. And not just knowing, but knowing the quality of the knowing. Yeah? Because in each moment of consciousness, there isn't just mindfulness, there are all these other qualities, and I'm going to talk more about that. You know yourself a little bit what works for you, but it's helpful to clarify that. Because if concentration, that is, you have an easy capacity to settle and stabilize the mind on the breath, for example, or on body sensations, or on sound, or on metta, then you can continue to support that. Not that the other isn't important too, but that's the emphasis. Or if that doesn't quite work for you, you have a different type of mind, then you know there's a greater emphasis on the continuity of mindfulness outside of this hall as well as in it. That as much effort as you bring into your sitting, you bring to your to your life outside. So I keep quoting U Tejaniya because a lot of his teachings really have stayed with me, and that is his teaching. A Burmese teacher in the lineage of Mahasi Sayadaw. But he's really changed that lineage into getting clear. Look, it's not the object. Objects come and go. It's the mindfulness that counts. Notice over and over again your mindfulness and the quality of your mindfulness as it arises in relationship to the object. Yeah? So that's the invitation. So there is an object, because in every moment of consciousness there's always an object, right? So the understanding, those of you who knew this might sound really weird, it did to me when I first heard it. Just like a tree is made up of component parts, cambium layers and leaves and chlorophyll and so on. And when the tree dies, those parts dissolve. And just like a rainbow, it comes together with particular conditions of moisture and light, and then dissolves. We're subject to the same laws of nature, that we're no different than nature. Just like monkeys and apes and gorillas come into being, are born, and then die and pass away, and that's it. We're just like that too, all nature. There isn't anything eternal and lasting in this life, according to the Buddha. That it is a set of conditions coming into being, and those conditions, as long as they last, support life. So there's food, right? There's air. There's a body relatively free of disease, so that you can continue to live. There's the right temperature. If you're a child, you need to be touched a certain amount. So there's certain conditions that allow for this body, mind, consciousness process to be sustained. And then those conditions, either the conditions change and the body dies, or old age changes the capacity of the body, mind to function, and we die. According to Buddhism, until the mind is fully enlightened, the stream of consciousness jumps into into an embryo. I don't want to get more into it than to say that. But what that means is that there isn't the equivalent of a soul who sees and hears, that in any moment one of the sense spaces, eyes, ears, taste, smell, touch, and mind is considered a sense space. In any moment, one of the sense spaces is triggered, and consciousness lies in the sense space, and that's what's triggered. That without consciousness, that sense space doesn't work. So, for example, let's say you're sitting and someone makes a noise. You're hearing that, right? Unless you're in deep samadhi, you're hearing that. That's consciousness co-arises to know the sound. And then it dies down, because the next moment you're back at your breath. So then it's body consciousness. So there are these different consciousnesses. Like, I don't know if you know the Chicago airport. I used to fly through it a lot. But it has this fountain. One comes and then dies. Another comes and dies. Another. So it's like that. This coming into being, dying. Coming into being, dying. So arising, passing, arising, passing. Everything inside of us is arising and passing. And that's how we're experiencing the world, through these bases of consciousness. In that consciousness is the capacity to be aware. There's a very basic awareness, a kind of know sound, without like really knowing it, just a basic. Maybe I'll get more into this because time is getting on tonight. But just to say that in each consciousness that is where an object makes contact, a visual object or an auditory object or a olfactory object, or what's this, taste object, whatever object it's coming, but the most important thing is that the consciousness that co-arises with it knows it. And so what we're doing is developing the sustained focus and knowing and openness to each object that arises. That's one way to say it. Let me give you a more poetic way. Some of you might be like, oh God, that poem again. But there's some new people in here, and so just in honor of them, I want to read it. So this is a whole different way of talking about what I'm saying. From Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visit. Welcome and attend them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. They may be clearing you out for some new delight, the dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I love that. Each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So then we are, just to reframe all that in this poetic image, we are the host or hostess to life. And at the door comes all these different experiences. And we would love to, or we're learning how to be a welcoming host to everything. Welcome. So I don't know about you, but I have a difficult friend. I love her, but she's difficult for me. She isn't difficult. That was not great speech. Sometimes irritation arises inside of me in her presence. And so she arrives at the door, and there is me as a host. Welcome. Welcome, come in. I can hold both, the irritation and the pleasure, the love. In that relationship, there's a great purification. In that kind of presence and welcoming into our beingness, our life, our house. What's important about this relationship is to notice the details of each friend at the door. What are they wearing? How is nervousness dressed? Jitteriness, high energy, can't stand still at the door. Oh, this is the quality of nervousness I'm welcoming in. How is joy? That subtle vibration around the heart. Or maybe pervades more into the being, that lightness, as though maybe you're about to take off and fly if it's really strong. This light, subtle vibration, joy arriving at the door. How is malice? Heavy, kind of wearing clumpy old boots. A teacher of mine, Michelle MacDonald, said she would spend a lot of time sort of making up exotic wardrobes for each visitor that came through the door, and that it kind of alleviated some of the challenges when there were a stream of not particularly invited guests. So as we notice both the continuity of our practice and what kind of practice we're doing, we also notice the quality of our mind, and if it's expansive, we can open up both to body sensations, the breath, pleasant, unpleasant, and then these mental qualities or factors in the mind that I'll talk more about tonight. But we already know them. But just to see if the mind is stable, turning to the mind and the quality of mindfulness and all the other associated qualities. For example, with mindfulness there is always faith. Mindfulness doesn't come into consciousness without faith. Faith is a forerunner of all wholesome qualities. See your faith. Yeah? Notice it. The Buddha says if you're looking at the mental qualities, also particularly notice if the hindrances are there or if they're not there. If there's desire or ill will, sloth, torpor, anxiety, and unsettledness or doubt. Notice if they're there or not. Wow, there's no doubt in my mind right now. Beautiful. Inviting the body to release into the support of the chair or cushion. Let's first turn to the mind, the atmosphere, that is, we could say, the heart. They are interchangeable in this practice. Notice what's in the heart. Settledness or disturbance. A visitor. Presence, awareness, or distraction. Those visitors. And then, having acknowledged the mind, see if you would like to practice right thought and invite a wholesome thought. Whatever your intention is of how you would like to meet yourself and practice this morning. And then let's take a moment together to begin with acknowledging the pressure that comes from the buttock sitting. The hands, contact with where they're resting. The touch of lips, and how the tongue is right there, the tip of the tongue. Notice the very root of the tongue, and how it's living. As we become more present, we notice more details. See if you can notice the wetness in the mouth and the warmth of the saliva. And opening to the breath. If the emphasis is on the object, notice the details of the very beginning of the breath through the middle to the end. Not just the rhythm of the breath, but the details of it. And the gap between the end of the in-breath and the beginning of the out-breath. And how the out-breath is. Harder, softer, longer, shorter. And that gap between the end of the out-breath and the beginning of the in-breath. If this feels where you want to stay, staying here, if you would like to move to the quality of the mind and knowing, there's that invitation too.